Under the glowing Miami skyline, Adrian Knight had everything: money, power, and fame. But in one reckless night, it all shattered. A devastating crash stole his freedom. His friends abandoned him, and the man who once ruled the city was left broken in despair. Yet, in the ruins of his old life, he would meet someone who would not only heal his wounds, but awaken a love he never believed in. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The city of Miami shimmered under the late night sky, its skyline alive with neon lights, loud music, and the endless hum of expensive cars cruising down Ocean Drive. The air carried the scent of salt water and champagne, mixing luxury with recklessness. In the middle of this glowing world was Adrian Knight, a billionaire who was known for his power, charm, and arrogance. Adrian was not just wealthy by inheritance, but also through daring investments in technology, luxury resorts, and entertainment ventures. His face often appeared on the covers of business magazines, but just as frequently, it appeared in gossip columns, where stories of his late-night escapades and high-profile romances made him the talk of the town. Unlike others in his position, Adrian never cared to hide his reputation. He embraced it. He lived for extravagance, for applause, for being the man everyone whispered about. Every night, Adrian was the center of attention at lavish parties. Yachts, penthouses, and rooftop bars were his stage. Women clung to his arm like ornaments, and champagne poured endlessly. His words, often laced with arrogance, were still met with laughter because he was Adrian Knight, the man who could do no wrong in the eyes of Miami's elite. To him, love was nothing more than an illusion. He mocked the idea, once telling a journalist during an interview, "Love is for those without choices. When the world offers so many options, why tie yourself to one?" It became a quote that circulated across social media, further cementing his image as the man too powerful and too proud to ever be vulnerable. But beneath the glitter of his life, cracks were beginning to show. His staff whispered about his short temper. His board members worried about his impulsive decisions, and even his friends had begun to notice how much he relied on alcohol and reckless thrills to feel alive. On one particular night, the clock pushed past 2 in the morning as Adrian stumbled out of a high-rise club in downtown Miami. The sound of bass still echoed from inside as he waved away 2 women who tried to follow him to his car. His steps were unsteady, his shirt half unbuttoned, and the smell of liquor clung to him like a second skin. His chauffeur hovered close by, nervously suggesting, "Sir, maybe I should drive tonight." But Adrian dismissed him with a grin that was both confident and careless. "It's my car, my rules. I'll be fine." He slid behind the wheel of his midnight blue Aston Martin, the engine roaring to life. The valet hesitated, but it was too late. Adrian was already speeding away, the city lights blurring in his rearview mirror. The coastal highway stretched out before him, quiet and open, the ocean waves glimmering under the moonlight. He pressed harder on the accelerator, the car surging forward like a beast unleashed. The wind lashed against his face, and adrenaline coursed through his veins. He laughed, the sound sharp and reckless, as if the night belonged entirely to him. But then, in a single moment, everything changed. A sharp curve appeared ahead. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat with a late-night message. His eyes flickered down for only a second. It was enough. The tires screeched as he lost control. The metal guardrail met the car with a deafening crash. Glass shattered like scattered diamonds across the asphalt. The Aston Martin flipped, the world spinning violently before darkness swallowed it whole. When Adrian opened his eyes, the world was chaos. Red and blue lights flashed across his vision. Voices shouted commands. His body was heavy, every breath sharp with pain. Agony seared through his legs, so intense it stole the air from his lungs. Strangers pulled him from the wreckage, their words muffled, their faces blurred. As the night faded into black, The last thing Adrian saw was the glittering city lights of Miami, now distant, slipping away as his world collapsed. The man who once ruled his nights with arrogance and excess was now broken, his empire of confidence shattered in a single instant. And as silence replaced the chaos, one truth became clear. His life would never be the same again. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of machines. Adrian Knight stared at the ceiling, his jaw clenched, his mind replaying the words of the doctor over and over again. Both legs fractured. Months of rehabilitation. No guarantee of walking again. To a man who had once raced down highways and strutted into boardrooms with confidence, the sentence felt like a life of chains. Days blurred into weeks, and when Adrian was finally released from the hospital, he returned to his mansion on the edge of Miami Beach. Once filled with laughter, music, and endless parties, it now felt like a hollow palace. His staff, dressed in crisp uniforms, tried to resume their duties, but the atmosphere was different. The master of the house was no longer the charming, reckless man who brought energy to every room. He was bitter, restless, and consumed by anger. A sleek wheelchair replaced the freedom of his legs. Every time he rolled past his collection of luxury cars, now gathering dust in the garage. The reality cut deeper. The women who once adored him arrived with flowers and sympathy in the beginning. But soon, their visits grew shorter, their smiles faded, and eventually, they stopped coming altogether. The lavish lifestyle that had once made Adrian feel invincible now mocked him. He lashed out at the people who remained. His chef, who once prepared elaborate meals for penthouse gatherings, now received only insults when the food failed to please him. His butler, loyal for more than a decade, walked on eggshells, terrified of triggering an outburst. Even his driver, once his companion on late-night adventures, kept his distance, quietly fulfilling his duties without conversation. At the office, things were no better. When Adrian returned to his company, his presence in a wheelchair startled his employees. The confident energy that had once filled boardrooms was gone. In its place was a man whose words were clipped, sharp, and often cruel. Executives whispered in hushed tones about his mood swings. Investors grew uneasy as his once magnetic personality turned cold and unpredictable. Deals began to slip through his fingers. Meetings ended in silence and tension. Adrian's empire, once a source of pride, now felt like a burden. He had built it on charisma, confidence, and daring risk. Without those qualities, the foundation cracked. Alone in his penthouse at night, Adrian would stare at the glowing city skyline. Miami's lights stretched endlessly, but instead of excitement, he felt emptiness. The parties, the women, the wealth, all of it seemed meaningless now. Anger grew inside him, and so did self-loathing. His physical therapy appointments offered little relief. The therapists tried to encourage him, guiding him through exercises designed to restore strength, but Adrian refused to cooperate. When the pain became too much, he snapped at them. When the progress seemed slow, he gave up. Week after week, the reports grew worse. His body was healing at a crawl, but his spirit was declining much faster. The whispers around him grew louder. His staff spoke of his decline when they thought he couldn't hear. Business associates wondered if the empire could survive without the old Adrian Knight, but the loudest voice of all was inside his own head, the voice that told him he was broken, worthless, and trapped in a life that had no meaning anymore. It was during one of these dark evenings, when the penthouse was heavy with silence, that the door opened and Marcus Hale stepped inside. Unlike the women who left and the colleagues who doubted, Marcus had been by Adrian's side since before the wealth and fame. He was the kind of friend who never bowed to arrogance, the one who spoke truth when others only flattered. "You look like hell," Marcus said bluntly, pulling a chair beside the wheelchair. Adrian let out a bitter laugh. "Thanks for the encouragement. It matches how I feel." Marcus leaned forward, his tone serious. You can't keep living like this. You're wasting away. You've locked yourself in this cage, and you're the only one with the key. Adrian's voice rose, sharp and angry. And what do you expect me to do? Miracles? The doctors already told me. This is my life now, a billionaire in a chair. Too broken for anything else. Marcus didn't flinch. Then maybe it's time to find a doctor who won't just treat your body, but also remind you what it means to live again. There's a hospital in Coral Gables, run by a woman named Dr. Leah Morgan. She doesn't see patients as cases. She sees them as people. I think she can help you. Adrian scoffed, shaking his head. A miracle-working doctor? I've seen enough of them. They all want the same thing, money, and I've got enough to buy their pity 100 times over. Marcus's voice hardened. This isn't about pity. It's about you deciding whether you'll keep sinking or if you'll fight for something better. You've given up already, and that's not the man I know. The words hit harder than Adrian wanted to admit. Anger burned in his chest, not at Marcus, but at himself. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that maybe his friend was right. Maybe there was still something worth fighting for. After a long silence, Adrian muttered, "Fine, I'll go, but only because you won't shut up about it." Marcus smiled faintly. That's all I needed to hear. That night, as Adrian stared out at the city from his balcony, he felt something unfamiliar. Not hope, not yet, but a flicker of curiosity. What kind of doctor was Leah Morgan? Why did Marcus believe in her so strongly? He didn't know the answers, but soon he would find out. Without realizing it, the first step of his true healing had already begun. The morning sun spread across Coral Gables, lighting up the clean white walls of Morgan Rehabilitation Hospital. It was not the largest hospital in Florida, nor the flashiest, but its reputation for compassionate care drew patients from across the state. Inside its doors worked Dr. Leah Morgan, a physician known not only for her skill, but for her calm strength and her refusal to give up on those who had lost hope. When Adrian Knight arrived, he wore dark sunglasses even though the sun was soft. It was a shield, a way to hide from the world. Marcus had driven him there, ignoring every complaint along the way. The moment the car stopped, Adrian muttered bitterly, "This is ridiculous. I don't need another lecture from some doctor who thinks he can fix me." Marcus leaned over, his voice steady. "Just try. That's all I'm asking." Reluctantly, Adrian let himself be wheeled to the entrance. The glass doors slid open and she appeared. Dr. Leah Morgan stepped forward, her posture graceful yet firm. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, her white coat pressed, her eyes calm and focused. There was no trace of pity in her gaze, only quiet confidence. "Mr. Knight," she said evenly, "welcome. I'm Dr. Leah Morgan. I'll be guiding your rehabilitation." Adrian tilted his head, his voice sharp with sarcasm. "Guiding me? Sounds like prison." Her expression did not change. "Not prison. Partnership. If you want to walk again, I want to help you get there. Shall we start?" Something about her composure unsettled him. He was used to people bending under his tone, but she stood unshaken. With a reluctant nod, he followed her into the therapy room. The first sessions were tense. Adrian snapped often, his pride clashing with her steady patience. When she asked him to lift weights to strengthen his arms, he scoffed. When she guided his legs through careful stretches, he gritted his teeth and spat bitter remarks. "I told you, I can't do this," he barked one afternoon, sweat dripping from his forehead. "You can," Leah replied calmly. "Your body is weaker, yes, but not useless. Progress isn't about perfection, it's about persistence." Her words stayed with him, even when he pretended not to listen. Each day, Leah returned. She adjusted his braces, asked about his pain, and guided his exercises. But she also asked about his life, not about his money, not about his fame, but about him. Most days, Adrian refused to answer, keeping his guard high. Some days, he muttered short, sharp responses, but she never pushed, never judged. She simply left space for him to speak if he chose to. One afternoon, frustration boiled over. Adrian slammed his hand against the wheelchair armrest and growled, "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything, to fall from the top into this." He gestured at his legs, his face twisted with anger. Leah crouched, so her eyes met his. Her voice was steady, quiet, but powerful. "You're right. I don't know what it's like to be you. But I do know pain. I know loss. And I know what happens when someone stops fighting. It never ends well." For a moment, silence filled the room. Adrian looked away, but her words lingered long after. Weeks passed. Progress was slow, but it was real. Adrian could sit up longer without pain. His arms grew stronger. He managed to stand briefly with support. Leah's encouragement, her patience, and her belief in him chipped away at the walls he had built around him. Gradually, their conversations stretched beyond therapy. One day, during a break, he asked, "Why did you become a doctor?" She smiled faintly. "My father built this hospital. When he passed, I wasn't sure I was ready to carry his dream. But patients kept coming, trusting the Morgan name. I stayed, and over time, I learned to love it. Not just the medicine, but the people." Adrian scoffed, but his voice was softer than before. "People always disappoint you." "Not always." She replied gently. "Sometimes they surprise you." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Adrian felt something shift inside him. As months passed, those around him noticed the change. His staff at home whispered about how he now said thank you when meals were served. At the office, he listened more and shouted less. His investors, once ready to walk away, began to regain confidence in him. But the greatest change was in Adrian himself. One afternoon, after a difficult session, Leah steadied him as he managed 3 trembling steps with crutches. His eyes filled with tears, and he turned away quickly, embarrassed. "There's no shame in tears," Leah said softly. "Sometimes they're proof that you're alive." Her words broke something inside him, not in pain, but in release. For the first time since the accident, Adrian felt a spark of hope. He realized then that Dr. Leah Morgan was not just healing his body. She was reminding him how to live again. The months that followed marked a new season in Adrian Knight's life. The man who once scoffed at love and lived only for pleasure began to change in ways no one thought possible. It started in small, almost invisible steps. He greeted his staff with kindness. He asked his driver about his family. He thanked his butler for loyalty that had survived even his darkest days. For years, Adrian had treated people as background to his spotlight. Her quiet confidence, her warmth, the way she spoke truth without fear, it unsettled him. Not because he disliked it, but because he realized he wanted more of it. He wanted more of her. Days turned into weeks, and the thought only grew stronger. Finally, one late afternoon, as Leah packed away her notes, Adrian cleared his throat. "Leah," he began, his voice uncertain, a rare tone for him. "Can I ask you something not about therapy?" She raised an eyebrow, curious. "That depends," she said. His lips curved into a nervous smile. "Will you have dinner with me?" For a moment, silence stretched. Leah studied him, searching his face for the arrogance she once expected. But there was none. His words carried vulnerability, even sincerity. Slowly, she nodded. "One dinner," she replied softly. "Let's see where it goes." That dinner became the first of many. They sat at a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the Miami skyline. Adrian, still leaning on crutches, had arrived early to make sure everything was perfect. When Leah stepped in, dressed simply but elegantly, he realized he was nervous for the first time in years. The evening was unlike anything he had ever known. There were no shallow games, no empty laughter. They talked about life, about their pasts, their dreams, and their scars. Leah shared memories of her father and the legacy of the hospital. Adrian admitted how lonely his mansion had felt, even when filled with people. For once, he was not performing. He was simply himself. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. Adrian's life began to transform beyond his recovery. He started new initiatives at his company, listening more and building trust where arrogance had once ruled. Investors returned, confident in his steadier hand. More importantly, inspired by Leah, Adrian used his wealth for something greater. He funded research programs at the hospital, sponsored rehabilitation for patients who could not afford it, and began a foundation focused on helping accident victims rebuild their lives. Money should heal, not just shine, he told Leah one evening. And he meant it. Their relationship blossomed. Together, they shared walks along the beach, slow and steady at first, then stronger as Adrian's legs carried him further. He learned to laugh again, not the hollow laugh of parties, but the deep laugh of a man who finally understood joy. One golden evening, on the shore of Miami Beach, Adrian stood without support, his legs trembling but steady. He held a small ring, nothing extravagant, but chosen with care. Turning to Leah, he said, "You've given me back my life, but more than that, you've given me something I never thought I'd find. Real love. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Leah's eyes. She smiled, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Adrian. Yes." Their wedding was simple but beautiful, held in a garden overlooking the ocean. Family, friends, and colleagues gathered, not just to witness a union, but to celebrate a redemption story. The man who had once lived for arrogance now stood reborn, his greatest fortune no longer measured in dollars, but in love. Together, Adrian and Leah launched the Knight Morgan Foundation, dedicated to giving hope to those who had lost it. Their lives became a balance of love, service, and purpose. And as they walked hand in hand along the beach at sunset, the waves washing over their feet, Adrian realized something he had never understood before. True wealth was not in the cars, the mansions, or the empire he had built. True wealth was in love, in healing, and in giving back. For Adrian Knight, the reckless billionaire, had died the night of the crash. In his place stood a man reborn, shaped by pain, strengthened by resilience, and redeemed by love. And so, Adrian Knight discovered that true fortune was never in his wealth, but in the love and healing that transformed his life. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.